Hi everyone, welcome to the second day of Vivecon. My name is Jeremy Dalton and I lead the virtual reality and augmented reality team for PwC UK. I'm also the author of Reality Check, a book which looks at the impact of XR in business. When we first wanted to answer the question around why XR is valuable in the world, we looked to our economists in the London office and we asked them to work out in a very complex economic model where they thought the major impact would be for XR. And what we found is that we expect XR to impact global GDP positively by $1.5 trillion by 2030, which is an absolutely incredibly large and amazing result. The reason for that is XR actually has a lot of applications across multiple business functions in different industries. It can help within operations to reduce the complexity of those operations, to reduce costs, to save time, to improve how we collaborate and how we work together remotely. It can make us more efficient, it can improve health and safety outcomes, and the list goes on, and that is just in operations itself. Within sales and marketing, that function, it can also create new revenue streams for organizations. It can help improve customer engagement. It can even help us understand how customers behave themselves. But by far the biggest area for XR, and in particular virtual reality for usage within the business landscape, is in training, and in particular the learning and development function of organizations. Within there, virtual reality can be used to create training that is faster. It can be used to improve learner confidence, to improve retention of information, to create greater cost efficiencies in deployment, to capture unique data when it comes to individuals who are on training programs within those organizations. And again, the list goes on here. I won't read through every bullet point, but you've got the idea that learning and development is clearly a massive area for virtual reality. In particular, to back that up, we wanted to understand how much of an effective area virtual reality is compared to its e-learning and classroom training counterparts. And what we found in a study that we conducted internally at PwC is that virtual reality can be better, faster, and cheaper at scale than traditional training methods. In particular, we found that virtual reality is 4 times faster to train students than it is to teach them in a classroom setting. It leads to 275% greater confidence for the students to apply what they've learned after their training. It leads to a 3.75 times greater emotional connection to the training content, 4 times greater focus in virtual reality compared to e-learning. And then finally, from a cost perspective, it's actually 52% more cost effective than classroom training at scale, so at 3,000 learners in particular. Now, this cost point is quite interesting because if we dig into that further, what we find is that yes, at the very beginning of its journey, virtual reality is indeed more expensive than both classroom and e-learning training per learners. And that is to be expected when you consider that there are software development costs perhaps, or licensing costs to deal with, where there is hardware procurement to manage. All of those areas add a lot of cost at the very beginning of the journey. But as organizations start to scale using this technology and start to bring it up to a very large number of learners, we start to see the cost per learner drop below that of its e-learning and classroom counterparts. From a classroom perspective, at 375 learners, that is the point at which VR training achieves cost parity with the classroom. At 1,950 learners, that is the point at which VR learning achieves parity with e-learning. So you may be thinking to yourself, okay, but this requires a lot of scaling up. It requires a lot of headsets going out into the market in businesses potentially all over the world. Now, the great thing is that this is absolutely possible to do these days with the investments that have been made by HTC and other companies, with the Focus 3 and other standalone headsets that allow these organizations to use virtual reality and to deploy it in a mass scale way. and distribute it to their members and their individuals all over the world. To back this up and to help understand who in the industry is using XR right now and how much is it being used in learning and development, we conducted an exercise that goes beyond simply asking surveys of different organizations in different industries. We scanned all the publicly available data out there. So that is 7.2 million UK and US businesses and all of their websites, their news articles, their social media postings, and anything else on the internet that we could scrape in terms of data with keywords around virtual reality and the like. And we categorized what we found into 4 different areas covering technology, geography, industry, and the use case or application. So in this case, technology, we're talking about virtual reality and augmented reality. For geography, we're talking about different regions of the UK and all US states. So those 2 countries were in scope for this project. We have a large list of industries you can see on screen here. And by use case or application, we've got learning and development, as well as other areas such as product and service development and consumer engagement. What we found is that there are thousands of live applications of XR in industry right now. And learning and development in particular is one of the biggest use cases of XR in the UK and the US. In the UK, it represents almost 22% of all the applications of the technology we found. In the US, it represents almost a quarter of all the XR applications. Virtual reality currently accounts for the majority of XR applications in both territories. So in the UK, it represents about 66%, and in the US, 63%. The great thing is these figures are minimum figures, and that shows that there is even greater potential for XR technology. And the reason these are minimum figures is because we only looked at publicly available information. We didn't look at direct-to-consumer applications. They were excluded from the scope of the analysis. And this particular set of data represents a snapshot in time that comes from mid-2020 when we conducted this analysis. Some of you may be wondering how the pandemic has affected things since that time. And the pandemic has affected XR both negatively and positively. On one side, yes, the year-on-year growth rate of XR headset shipments for Q1 dropped year-on-year, and Q2 it dropped even more, reaching nearly a decrease of 24%. However, on the positive side, the impact on time spent using virtual reality has been massive, and it's been really positive. So about 70% of respondents to this particular survey have said that they spend more time in virtual reality than they had prior to the pandemic. Ultimately, although there's been negative impact on XR in terms of budget pressure on organizations, in terms of difficulties and a strain on the supply chain, there have also been a lot of positives to take away. There has been a pressure on organizations to innovate, to start engaging with emerging technologies. And really, that is a key area that I would stress. Prior to the pandemic, yes, many organizations were interested in this technology, but now more than ever, they've been under pressure, and they've seen that they need to start engaging with technology like this, and XR, and in particular virtual reality, represents a fantastic solution for learning and development that we're seeing more and more organizations and business leaders engage with. So hopefully that puts a very positive spin on things, and gives you a positive outlook for the future of XR and virtual reality and learning and development in particular. More than happy to have a chat with you all. If you want to get in touch, my details are on the slide here. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day at Vivecon.